Parsha Lech Lecha is on page 54. And a very fascinating point is, of course, that we will discover that Hashem speaks to Avram. His name is not yet Avraham. His name is Avram, and he tells him to go and go to a land that he will show him. And this idea of going to this land that I will show you is a very big test. We're going to learn that Avram was tested 10 times by Hashem. We've already postulated that the number 10 is a great number. We've already postulated that the number 10 is the apex of everything. 10 fingers, 10 toes, 10 generations from Adam to Noach until Hashem said that was it. And 10 generations from Noach to Avram, and Hashem said that was it too. Except the difference was that when Noach was there, he couldn't avoid the flood. He survived the flood, but he couldn't avoid it. He couldn't prevent it. Whereas now Avram Avinu is going to become the light of the world and change the situation. He's what we call the impact person. The impact person is a game changer. Avram Avinu, Abraham our father. What we're going to learn is that Hashem tells Avram to go to Eretz Yisrael, to the land that he will show him. And he goes on, and we find that he goes to this land, the land of Canaan, and we find a lot of different adventures that he has, and the different things that occur, different tests that occur, different challenges, different difficulties, and he withstands them all in a constant loyalty and obedience to Hashem. What we find here is that the Torah is focusing on this single individual. And he almost becomes not just the star of the show, but almost becomes a cameo. What's a cameo?
An appearance.
Huh? Change. Oh, no, not cameo, sorry. That's a mistake. Not cameo. Not the star of the show, but it's a one-man show. That's what I meant to say. It's a one-man show. Every other person in the parsha, except for perhaps his wife Sarah, is incidental to the story. Now, to understand that is to understand the power of the person. But if we follow the story through to next week, and to the week after, and to the week after, and to the week after, and we do so in a manner in which we discover that this idea of submission to Hashem continues on through his son and grandson, and Yitzchak and Yaakov, and it begins to move forward into the establishment of the 12 tribes, and the 12 tribes go into Mitzrayim, which is of course next week's book, which is the next book, and actually they go in the end of this book, and then by the next book the people are the people are enslaved, and then God comes and promises to take them out, and he tells Moshe Rabbeinu to do the job. And he tells them, I intend to take the Jews out of Egypt, these people out of Egypt, we won't call them Jews yet. I intend to take these people out of Egypt, and I return them to the land of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So the Torah clearly makes an absolute connection with the people in Mitzrayim and their suffering and their miraculous deliverance, and they're receiving subsequently of the Torah, and their return to the land that belonged to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But it didn't even belong to them. And we're going to learn about that too. It didn't belong to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov were not possessors of Israel. They lived there. They traveled there. But they did not own the land. The land did not become ours until we moved in under Yoshua, under Joshua. So basically, we have to say that this week's Parsha, Lech Lecha, which features Avram, is therefore the very, very infancy and beginnings of us. The infancy and the beginnings of the Jewish people. So here's where we are in our infancy. Here's where we are beginning. This is the beginnings of us. Now, to understand that is to put the other first two parshas of last week and the week before into perspective. The last two parshas covered 20 generations, 2,000 years. Remember, always we work under the backdrop of the ruling that says that our world is destined to live 6,000 years. And that the 6,000 years is based upon the 6 days of creation. And that the 7,000th year will be representative of Shabbat, of Shabbos, in which the world will cease to exist. Everything will come to a stop. We also mentioned in discussing creation that there's every reason to believe that once that 7,000th year is done, that there will be another world coming. Will that other world also be 6,000 years? Could be. It's hard to understand, but these are the values that God has implanted into our world anyway. The idea that there is such a thing as a 7-day week was implanted into the earth by Hashem. But we talked about that. We talked about the idea that Bereshis is the beginnings of creation, and that everything we see in our world today, including computers, is in fact created within the first 6 days. To prove the point, everybody knows that Hashem decided to to promise Noach after he emerged from the flood, emerged from the ark, that there will be that there will never be, I promise I will never deluge the world again with water and with the flood. Whenever there's rain, don't get scared. Because after the rainstorm is over, you will see in the sky a rainbow. And that rainbow was created during the first 6 days of creation. Actually, it wasn't. I beg your pardon. If you look at the Mishnah, in the Ethics of the Fathers, chapter 5, you will see that God created 10 new items just between candle lighting on that first Shabbos and Shkia and sunset. Within those 18 minutes that we all spent scurrying around to conclude all our preparations, right? To make sure we're on time, get those valuable extra 18 minutes. Within that period of time, God created 10 more items. And each item came to fruition, or came to being used whenever it was needed. So when the rainbow wasn't created at the time of Noah, creation is done. The world is done in completion. When God created the world, He created the world just like He created us. God created man, He created a baby. He created a man. And a woman was a woman. Full-fledged. And so was all of creation. God didn't put seeds in the ground. It was grass. Boom. God didn't put a little sapling in the ground. It was a whole tree. God didn't start little baby fish or baby birds. We've got a whole world here. 6 days, and you've got a fully cooked world. So, we understand that everything was created at that time, including these last 10 things that were necessary to come in the future when we'll need it. In the future, 1,000 years from now, we'll need to Noah will need to have a sign from Hashem that there'll never be another flood again, so that mankind will never be afraid of rain. And even if you saw, heaven forbid, a big tsunami, you would know there's a rainbow. It will not engulf the earth. It may engulf a certain group, or it may engulf and destroy and drown a whole city, but it will never destroy the earth again, ever, as it did at the time of the flood. So all of that was created now. So now we take the creation and all of mankind and the first Parsha, 1,000 years of worthlessness, garbage, nothingness, no accomplishments whatsoever, a defection from God, a disaffection from God, and frankly, thievery, stealing, and all the things that develop into a depraved society of people who want to self-indulge. I want it, I want it now. Right? Isn't that what the kids do when they... Boom, I got whatever I need. Right? In the old days, when I was a little boy, and you wanted to see a certain movie, let's say, a real nice feature, so you had to spend a few days to spend to save up the money, right? And then you had to walk at least half a mile to the theater. And then you had to walk into the theater and pay the money and get a ticket and sit down quietly and wait to see a feature film. Today it's bang. Instant gratification. Right? So we understand that when the sense of a world of such depravity needs to be destroyed. That make you scared about now? It should. However, there's a promise. There will never be a flood again. There might be other things. And it won't be the whole world. It could be LA. 1971. 1994. Okay, it only lasted 30 seconds. How many people were 71? Nobody remembers 71. How many people remember? You remember 71?
Well, I was alive in 71.
Were you?
Not here.
Okay. Who remembers 94? Yeah, good old 94, right? Who remembers 89 in San Francisco in the middle of the World Series?
I was there.
Yeah, were you?
My
At the ball game?
My sister and brother were at the ball game.
Oh, imagine a baseball game. And they're going to bat some balls flying all over the place. Right? Yeah. 1994, we had this earthquake. So everything went flying all over the place. You look outside, you see the water dancing in the pool, you know. And you don't know whether your house is going to stay alive, not stay alive. Kids kids were little then. The kid ran into our bedroom. My little boy sat right next to the bed. He said, Shema Yisrael. I said, my dog was 12 years old. Shema Yisrael. Who knows what was going to happen? Well, you never know what can happen in a society that is self-destructive. In any event, as the time progresses, the world after Noah survives, and the waters recede and it dries out, and the ark finds itself on Mount Ararat, and 150 days later we're able to get out of the ark and resume humanity, and humanity goes nowhere again. Once again, humanity becomes destructive, but not as bad. So the fact that there was no flood after the next 1,000 years, which really denied God just as much as the first 1,000 years, and those second 10 generations from Noah to Avram, the fact that there was no flood after that was 3 reasons. Number one, Avram Avinu stepped up to the plate. Avram Avinu said by his actions to Hashem, you don't have to destroy this world, I'm going to save it. One standard bearer of power for what's true in the world, for Hashem. Secondly, there is this flood, there is this rainbow that guarantees that Hashem will not destroy the world again. And so we have this sense of protection. And also there was one other factor that contributed to the fact that the world was not destroyed after 2,000 years. It was destroyed after 1,000, right? But it wasn't destroyed after 2,000. We said Avram Avinu was one reason why. Second reason why was because Hashem made the promise. Third reason, the people brought their evil to an apex. They decided to recreate New York City. And they built a big tower. Bigger than the Empire State Building. Right? And if you've been to New York, you walk through certain streets of downtown, you can never see sun. That's right. Never. It's dark. All day, all night.
All night.
Right? It's dark. I mean, New York City, you understand, is a city that never sleeps because it don't make a difference. Day and night, it's all the same. Anyway, so what happens here? They're building this tower, and they're all forgetting about Hashem. But it's worse than that. They're building the tower because they want to take charge of the world. They want to fight God. And you think, ask yourself, what's the psychology of people who acknowledge God, but think they can handle God? Do you remember Paro? Paro said, all right, now who's God? You know, who's God? But then along comes the plague called blood. That was the first plague, right? It turned all the water to blood. And Paro said, that's pretty good. That's a good trick. But I can do it too. And he calls out his magicians from the magician school. And he calls out the kid magicians too. The message brings out not just the adult magicians, but the kid ones, little ones in the first grade, in kindergarten. That's an easy, everybody can do that. That's an easy trick. Boom, there. So why would Paro do that? See, Paro does it because he's harming himself. I mean, if water turns to blood, it's a bad thing. It's a drink. So why would Paro do that? Just to say to God, I know you're there, but you and I are going at it one-to-one, and I can handle you. That's a pretty interesting psychology. What's the psychology? What's the of a man who acknowledges God and thinks he can do battle with God? And of course, then comes the frogs. God says, and then come the frogs all over the place. And Paro says, frogs? I can do that. Boom, here's frogs. Why would Paro answer the frogs? Frogs are already destroying the town. Because he's wanted to battle with God. Finally comes the third plague, the plague of kinim, lice, and the Egyptian magicians say, we can't do this. It's too small. This is the finger of Hashem. And all of a sudden, Paro begins to feel that he's losing this battle. Fact of the matter is that people do this because while they acknowledge that there is power in the earth, and they acknowledge that there is power beyond their own scope, they are unwilling to admit that their own scope is limited. If a person is running a company and he's having some problems, let's say, he's not necessarily going to all of a sudden turn around and be religious and say, hey, God, help me out. He's going to find his own ways to maneuver and try this trick and that trick and this way and that way until he can be able to do what he needs to do, thinking all the while that he is going to win. That ego overtakes a person. There is nothing worse in the human development of bad character than ego.
Yes.
Nothing's worse. God says, you have ego? I have no interest in living with you. Don't come near me. I do not want to be near anyone who's got egocentricity. You think highly about yourself. In fact, I don't want to come near you because you stink. A bad smell. And the bad people who have arrogance give off bad odors. They don't want to. Who wants to be near such a person? In any event, this is the psychology of people who think there is a power, but think they got power too. Mm-hmm. So anyway, they build this tower with an attempt to fight God by saying the following. God, look, let's face it. There's heaven and there's earth. Down here on earth, there's loads of people. Up there in heaven, it's just you. Maybe a few stars, a few planets, whatever. We got more than you got. It's not fair to divide the world in half and you take the heavens and we take the earth. We're going to take some of the heavens too. Because after all, we got more people. And so they build this big, big tower. And in building the tower, the Almighty says, these guys think that they can do whatever they want. It's ridiculous. This is what I saved the world for. But Hashem says, I will not destroy them. Because why? Say it, Faye. If you got it, say it. Say it.
I might not be right, but because Abraham, he chose to set up tents instead, and what he built for Hashem.
Right, but what is that? How does that help the bums that are building the tower? Why will God not destroy them or their tower? The answer is because, what do you say?
Well, Abraham was trying to separate himself.
I'm not doing Abraham here. Forget Avram. It's got to do with these people.
His promise.
The promise part of it. And Avram is also part of it. But there's a third reason. And the third reason is?
I
No?
mean, they were working together.
Say it
They
again.
were all working together.
Listen to that. Listen to Alexis. Oh.
Working together to do bad.
Hashem said these people know how to get along. Which is contradistinct, so opposite the first 1,000 years when people were stealing and indulging and taking and having immediate gratification and stealing, and people can't get along. That's destruction. There's nothing worse than people who can't get along. That merits destruction. But these people got along. They worked together. Problem is, they worked together for the wrong cause. The wrong cause. Now, I have a whole story that my Rabbi once taught me about how people are developing good character and great work ethic and great accomplishments. People are really powerful people, but for the wrong cause. So we'll talk about that some other time. But for the fact is these people are all messed up. I mean, they're not all messed up. I shouldn't say that. They're doing a pretty good job. They built this big tower, but in fact. They have not only refused to acknowledge God, they want to fight with God. So they got to be stopped. But they can't be destroyed because they have that quality called peace. But how Hashem will stop them is He will cause them not to have peace. When you have a good quality like peace, I want peace. Let's make peace. Shalom Hashem. Peace now. Peace tomorrow. Peace yesterday. Peace the day before. Peace. Everyone wants peace. That peace will be destroyed by Hashem. Because peace for the wrong cause is destructive, as we said. It only feeds the ego of people. So in the end, God will take that peace and turn it into shambles. So the Israelis thought they made peace in 1993 with our slogan. More terrorism came after that than any other single time in the history of the entire country. Thank you, Oslo. Thank you, Rabbi. For nothing. What's the point? The point is that this peace, Hashem says, I'm going to ruin it by causing you people not to be able to communicate. I'm going to make a whole bunch of different languages. Right? But I'm not going to make different languages. I'm going to make different languages using the same words for different items. So, for instance, let's say a guy says, I like a pencil. So in your language, it's a pencil. In my language, it's really glasses. Okay. So can I have a pencil, please? And you give me this, and I say, what do you give me this for? It's stupid. I need glasses, right? But it got worse. Let's say I said to you, would you kindly over here hand me that pencil? Because I need to write something for the building of the tower, right? And in your language, pencil became brick. So instead of giving me a pencil, you gave me a brick. Are you crazy? Right? Then I said to someone, would you kindly throw me a towel? Right? And in this guy's language, a towel's a hammer. He throws at me a hammer. Right? We can't get along. We can't work. We can't do this. And the tower's finished. But all of this story, as a prelim to humanity, as a prelim to Avraham in this parsha, is a story of humanity failing. God creates man, woman, and they flop miserably through the first 1,000 years of self-indulgence and hatred and stealing, and a flood. Another 1,000 years, Noah tries it, nothing happens. And of course, what we have now is, what are we going to do at the end of 2,000 years? Of nothingness, of worthlessness, of garbage. Well, there's a rainbow. We can't destroy the world. The people are peaceful. We got to redirect them. And here comes Avraham Avinu to do that redirection. Here's where Avraham Avinu's tents will come into play. But the point is that we begin here. The Jewish people begin here. The first two parshas have nothing to do with us. Nothing to do with Jews. Us starts here. And as we said, the story will unfold all the way through Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and what else? And plenty of other plenty of other events, including the going to Egypt and getting out of Egypt, getting the Torah and Moshe Rabbeinu, and to come back to Avraham. And of course, when we talk about Avraham, we know that everything is three fathers, not one, and therefore it's always Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And so therefore, if we are the descendants of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, we return to that land, it's all about us. Us begins here. So why didn't the Torah begin here? The Torah didn't begin here because the Torah, you see, is a story of accuracy, of historical accuracy. The Torah is a story of truth. And this is one of our major arguments about the validity of the Bible, of the Torah, is that it begins with the story of humanity. Yes, it may focus on us, and it comes at the bottom line, it does come to us, but we're also part of humanity, and the story began without us. So we may be the star, but the star came into the show a little bit later on. So we begin the Jewish people, story of the Jewish people, Parsha Lech Lecha, Parsha, the story of Avraham Avinu, story of us, and we come in to a story that really began at the end of last week's Parsha with the birth of Avram. So let's go back a little bit to page 50, verse 26. Here's a man named Terach. Have we spoken about Terach before? Have we not? And did we not say that Terach had 3 sons?
Yeah.
Right? And here they are. Terach has 3 sons, Avram, Nachor, and Haran. And Haran has Lot. Haran died. Who cares? Well, because his death is significant.
Yes.
Of course he's significant. Haran dies in the lifetime of his father in his native land, Ur Kasdim. Why is it called Ur Kasdim? What's the word Ur mean?
Light.
Light. The fire of the fiery furnace which Avram Avinu was cast into. So everybody knows the story. It's the first test Avram Avinu has, and it's not even specifically written in the Torah. It's alluded to. What's the allusion? The concept, of course, is that Avram Avinu was born in the year 1948. He becomes 52 at the age of, as the world becomes 2000. The world now starts with Torah, because he now goes public with Torah. How does he go public with Torah? As we all know, Terach, his father, was quite disappointed with him. He was upset. He didn't do well in idol school, where he hoped he was following the traditions of idols and so forth. And he had 2 brothers that were doing really well and very successful, and had great businesses, and drove the fastest camels in town. But in fact, Avram never went to school. He hardly showed up, and by the time he just cut out of school and we find him by the ocean, by the trees and by the forest, trying to understand the origins of the world. Terach is convinced his son is limited, challenged. That's a fancy word for saying he ain't got it upstairs. He's cuckoo. He's the same. So the fact of the matter is that he doesn't know what to do with him, so he says, I'll tell you what we're going to do, Avram, my poor son. We're going to continue opening the store that I have this idol store, but we're going to take you into the business and call it Terach and Son Incorporated. Manufacturer of idols. So, on the first day of this new job, Terach tells Avram, would you kindly mind the store? I'll be back in a few minutes after an hour. And Avram says, this is the moment that I've been waiting for. This is where the world will change. The world is 2000. I'm 52. I know the truth. I got to fight for it no matter what. So we talked about it also in terms of Noach last week in Shabbos. Avram Avinu, of course, goes ahead and smashes all the idols. Right? And then walks Terach and says, who did this to my store? He takes Avram had previously smashed the idols, chopped all the heads off, and he put the hatchet of that chopped the idols into the hands of the big idol in the front and said, he did it. Well, of course, it's ridiculous. Well, you're crazy. You're worse than I thought. Says Avram, well, if you don't believe that he can do that, why are you bound him? He can't do anything. Oh, you're crazy. Now you're totally illogical. So therefore, we're going to throw you into an insane asylum, which in those days was a kivshut ha'esh, a burning furnace. Avram Avinu is ready to stand up, and not a problem. And he gets thrown in, and he comes out safe. Says, Haran, his brother, the opportunist. Haran, his brother, the businessman. Ha ha ha. Avram got onto something new. I want to be part of that. I'll become his deputy. I'll jump into the furnace too. And he gets killed. Because he didn't do it, l'shem shemayim, for Hashem. How many people in their childhood read comic books? How many people ever read Superman? How many people remember the planet upon which Superman was living?
Yes.
Right? Krypton, right? How many people remember that Superman's father, Jor-El, what's it got to do with the Parsha? That Jor-El kept on telling everyone, doom is coming, doom is coming, destruction is coming. And they all thought he was
Crazy.
right? That's what they thought about Noah when he built the ark.
Yeah.
And they all died, just like the planet of Krypton exploded. Now, frankly, Avram Avinu is doing the same thing. But Avram Avinu is able to make an impact on the world because he does this publicly and he's ready to take on any challenger. I'm right. I got the truth. The rest of you are nuts. And I'll stand in the middle of Wilshire Boulevard and scream it. And they're going to lock me up, and I don't care. Who's got that kind of guts? Who's got that kind of guts? That is Avram Avinu. That was Noah too, in that sense. But Avram did it publicly. Avram did it in a way in which he wanted to impact people. I'll talk to you about it. Let's discuss the matter, and I'll show you the truth. Well, Avram is now... Avram has passed his first test, first of 10. Haran dies. Avram and Noach took wives. The name of Avram's wife was Sarai. The name of Noach's wife was Milcah, the daughter of Haran. That means Haran, who died, not only had Lot, but also had Milcah. Milcah married her uncle, Nachor. Do we all see that so far? Right? Furthermore, Haran is known as the father of Yiscah, of Milcah and Yiscah is another name for Sarah. So, in fact, Nachor and Avram married their nieces, and what's left of the family, of course, is Terach, the father, the two sons with the two daughters married to the two daughters of the dead brother, Haran. And of course, Lot is left as well. Now, Terach takes his son Avram. Let's go to 53, verse 31, the last of last week's Parsha. Terach takes his son Avram and Lot, right? The son of Haran, his grandson, right? And his daughters-in-law, Sarai and Avram, his son, and they depart to Ur-Kasdim. They don't take Nachor with them. Nachor stays. He's not interested in going. But they leave Ur-Kasdim to go to the land of Canaan. They arrive at Choran and they settle there. Why'd they leave town? Anybody? Why'd they leave town? Why'd they go? God didn't tell them anything. Why'd they go? Let's conclude, quite simply, that Avram wasn't very popular there, challenging the system and the establishment, right? And let's conclude that Terach went along with him, because Terach was thrown out of town too. After all, your son Avram is messing us all up. He'll let him get out of town, you go with him. And so they all go. And they're going towards Canaan. Now, we're not really sure what Canaan is yet. We'll know eventually that it becomes Israel. And that's what another name is at the time. But we're going to know, and by the way, remind me before we end tonight, I want to talk to you about the relative relationship between Canaan, the nation of Canaan, and the Jews in terms of Israel in just a minute. And that will have a big impact upon, let's say, the relationship between the Jewish people and Palestinians today regarding Israel. That'd be a big impact. Hold on to that, and if I forget it, remind me. But they leave, but they stop at Haran. Now they stop at Haran. I don't know where they went, east, north, west, south, who knows. But I'm going from Ur Kasdim to Haran on my way to Canaan, and they stop there. And for some reason, they stop. Maybe, shall we say simply, that they stopped there because the trip was too difficult, too arduous, too demanding for an old man like Terah. Can we say that reasonably? But you're going to see that it has a deeper impact. His old age has nothing to do with it. There's a reason he didn't continue. Because soon as that happens, the days of Terah are 205 years and Terah dies. Okay, Terah's 205, is that right? Right? So if he's 205 and he's elderly and he dies, that's the end of the story. Except we go to next week's Parsha, this week's Parsha, our page 54, and Hashem tells Avram, now that your father's no longer alive, let's go and get out of this land, get away from your relatives and your father's house to the land that I will show you, which of course becomes Eretz Canaan. But this has to be test number 2 because God is asking you to do what?
To go.
To travel. Traveling to where?
Don't know.
Don't know.
Just go.
Gotta be a test. Okay? God promises him, I will make you a great nation, and I'll bless you, and I'll make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who curses you, I'll curse him. All the families of earth will bless themselves by you. Verse 5, what did Avram do?
Took his wife, Sarah.
He went. Right? Avram went as Hashem had spoken. What does it mean when the Torah says Avram went as Hashem had spoken? What does that mean? That means simply he's a total servant of Hashem. He passes the test. Hashem says go, you go. There's no questions asked. There's no issues of discussion here. You have to do what you have to do. You live in a neighborhood that's not religious. You have to move. That story's over. There's no discussion on that. Well, my lease isn't up. I got a lease. I'm still busy. That stuff doesn't work. I mean, Avram had a lease too, I'm sure. He broke the lease, that's all. He just went. You gotta go. That's what Hashem says. But I established myself here. You know, listen, Hashem, you know that I'm in your service. And you know that my job is to spread your name. Which means I'm not like Noah. I'm going to make this world different, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing good here. In Chara, I'm doing real good. Hashem says, get out. Go somewhere else.
Yes.
And you ask no questions, that's submission to Hashem. That's the power of Avram Avinu. Your question.
I want to say, I think it's also extra special because Avram Avinu was so wealthy, comparable to, like, let's say, Bill Gates today or Mark Zuckerberg. And even though he could have thought, maybe I'm losing my wealth when I'm going.
Well, he said, but that's true. But the promises of verse 2 indicate all of his concerns. Take a look. Verse 2 says, you're worried about travel? Let me tell you something. I'll make you a great nation. What does that mean, I'll make you a great nation? It means that you're going to have children. Now, wait a second. I forgot to tell you something. Take a look back at the page before and look at the top of 53. Sarai was barren and had no child.
Yes.
Now, if you want to make an impact in the world, you can impact a lot of people, a lot of friends, a lot of students, but you got to impact your own. You got to make sure that you have kids and make sure your kids will carry on. Biological kids. In other words, in a sense that all the people you've impacted and changed, what about your own in terms of, will they continue in that task of impacting and changing? So of course he's got no kids, and that bothers him a great deal. God says to him, you want to make a change? You want to have kids? I'll make a great nation. Go. But God, everybody knows that you can't have children and raise children on a trip and travel. You tell me to go to a place where I don't even know how long the trip is, I don't know, and you expect me to have kids? I'll make you a great nation. Don't ask questions. But it doesn't work that way. I mean, I got to settle down. You leave it to me. And furthermore, on 55, verse 2, I'll bless you. What does bless mean? Everybody knows that the simple word of blessing means what? Huh? Wealth, money. You're worried about money? You're worried about that you're going to lose all your wealth? You're going to lose your holdings? Lose your real estate? Lose your property? Lose your this? Lose your that? Don't worry about it. I'll make sure you're wealthy. And in case you're worried about you won't be able to make impact upon the people because you're going from place to place, no one will know who you are and no one will know your message clearly enough. Don't worry, I'll make your name great. The whole world will know who you are. Which of course everybody knows today. Everybody, the whole world knows. Abraham began and discovered monotheism. That there's one God in the world. Okay, so Avram Avinu passes test number 2. Now, in so doing, okay, he goes from the land, from the relatives, and from the father's house. So what does that mean, basically? That means cut your ties. You're changing. Now, Avram Avinu, for all intents and purposes, we all know, was the first
Hebrew.
and the first convert.
Hebrew.
When you convert, that's what you got to do. Goodbye. I'm done. That was this life. I'm going on embarking into a new life. You come out of the waters of the mikvah, and you are a different person. And you do have to close the chapter on that previous life. Now, people ask the question about, let's say, do I honor my parents? The answer is yes, you do. Because honoring parents is the midst of the Torah. And if you're embracing the Torah, including all 613, 613 includes, one of them is honor your mother and father. So therefore, if you don't do that, then you're only doing 612. That's not conversion. Conversion is accepting full 613. Therefore, the obligation to your parents in terms of appreciation they brought you to this world remains in effect. But the rest of your experiences of the past and all your pals and all your buddies and all that else, it's got to be changed. Because you're embarking in a brand new situation. How brand new is it? Well, one of the major teachings of the world, this is world teaching, by the way, is found at the beginning of creation. Take a look at page 2. In creation, God created heavens and earth. And of course, if you look in verse 3 on page 2, you'll see that God created light. And in verse 4 on creation, you'll see that God saw light was good. And then what did God do after he saw that it was good?
Separate.
Amen. Separation. Doesn't the Hebrew word for separation? Otba. No. Havdalah. Everybody knows that when you make Havdalah on Saturday night, you are making a distinction, a major distinction between A and B. Between
natural time and
between
holy time.
Shabbos, 6 days, between light and darkness, between holiness and non-holiness, between Israel and the nations. That's how stark the difference is. The difference between the Jewish people and the world at large is the difference between night and day. Light and darkness. The distinction between the Shabbos, I mean, you want to keep Shabbos. You really want to keep Shabbos? Well, stay to it and realize that at a certain moment on Friday night, boom, everything changes. The hustle and bustle of Friday and the craziness that it encompasses, back and forth, here and there, buy this, get that, do this, mop the floor, take a shower, boom! At 6:16, when it's candlelighting, it's all over. That's called Havdalah. Havdalah was created on the first day of creation. It's an underpinning of the earth. It's a way in which the world operates. To be more specific about it, and this is really where it comes into understanding, is that, and I talked about this, I believe, 2 weeks ago, is that when God created all the other animals, and I think you can find it too, let's say on page, 6, verse 24, God said, let the earth bring forth every living creature, each according to its own kind. You see that?
Yes.
Are we allowed to mix breed animals?
No.
No. Everybody's going to look different. This is that. There's differences, not in clothing, as we said, shatnez, not in fruit and a vineyard and a vineyard and let's say and grain, and there can't be, and there has to be a very significant difference between men and women.
Yes.
And as I said earlier, God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Right? Everyone knows that. And that's why it's so out. That's not how our world operates. Because Adam and Steve can't produce children. And that's the essence of the beginning, the first mitzvah of the Torah. Have kids. So these are what we call the underpinnings of creation, how our world operates effectively. Of course, do it the other way, and you put a lot of problems into our world, and our world becomes dysfunctional, heaven forbid. In the end of the day, we know that Avram Avinu is embarking upon a new trip. But here's the key. Watch this. Go back to Avram Avinu, and his trip on page 54, and it occurs after. Go back, turn the page back and forth with me. After Terach dies.
Yes.
But there's one little problem with that. The math don't make it. Now, I know you don't have calculators with you, and if your head doesn't operate as quick as mine, no problem. I'll do the math for you. Go back, please, to page 50. And would you kindly tell me how old in verse 26 was Terach when Abram was born?
70.
70. Okay. Now go back to 52, where Terach is dying. At what age did Terach die? How old was Avram, his son?
What? 70.
How much?
70.
No, 170.
Are you in business? Oh my God.
131.
Oh my God.
Why?
I can't even add or subtract. I hope you have an accountant.
One was 70 and he was died when he was 12.
Okay, he was 70 when he had Avram. And he's 205 when he dies. How old is Avram?
130.
45 or 50.
135.
He
135.
died 7 minutes ago.
You say you weren't right. You were.
And then,
I mean, guys, it's not rocket science.
75 and
Terach
25.
dies at 205.
It's too
How
bad.
old?
Zach is still there. Come back to us.
Terach dies at 205. He had Avram when he was 70. How old was Avram when his father dies?
135.
Thank you.
But we didn't say 2 minutes ago.
Okay, ready? Has everyone got that?
He
Yes.
said-
Okay, folks.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Were Abram and his brothers triplicates? Because they all
I
were
mean,
born
you
at
mean
70.
triplets. Yeah, right. So let's just say that they were triplets. Maybe the fact they were even from different mothers, even. Who knows?
7 years in.
We have to work with the information we're given. We're given 70. He has a kid. 205. He dies. The kid's 135.
Right.
That's obvious.
Right.
Okay. Not so obvious. Take a look at 54. Avram travels to Israel. Take a look at verse 4. Avram goes as God told him and takes Lot with him because Lot's an orphan, as you all know. How old is Avram when he leaves Haran?
75.
Do you all see the problem or don't you?
Yeah.
I thought it was 135 when his
This is
father.
why I said.
Oh, that's what.
Oh.
Good save, good save. Good save. They do that all the time. So, basically, Avram is supposed to be 135, and the next verse follows, and there he goes to Canaan, right, from Haran. Because they're going to Canaan, but they stop in Haran, then he dies, and then the father Terach dies, and then Avram moves on. But wait a second. There is a problem here. The numbers don't add up. They don't jive. The numbers say 135 Avram is, and he gets there at Yisrael, there at Canaan, and he's only 75.
Tell him why.
Huh?
He knows why.
He's just talking about it.
No, he didn't know why.
He's kind of new life.
He was stuck in Knan for 60 years. It took him 60 years.
No.
Started a new life.
Say it.
New life. That's his new
Look,
life.
here's what happened, folks. Here's what happened. Listen carefully. This is what Rashi teaches. Rashi says, there's no doubt that he was 75 when he arrived in Eretz Yisrael. It does not say that he left Choron to Eretz Yisrael at 135. We assume that because the math made up a feature that. We assume if that Terach was 70 when his son was born and he's 205, now his son is 135 when he dies. That was a good assumption, a fair assumption, but it doesn't jive with what it says. So we got to go with what it says. So what Rashi teaches us is a very amazing lesson. Listen very carefully. That
It's not chronological.
right, that's a problem. So here's how it works. Hashem, the Torah, wants to teach you a great lesson. That Avram did leave when he was 75. And his father was
Lie.
still alive. But when he left, he was reluctant to go.
Yeah.
He didn't want to go. He didn't want to go because he didn't want to leave his father. Avram had a very great, deep respect for his father. Even though his father had thrown him into the burning furnace. You want to talk about child abuse? This guy, a man takes his son and throws him into a burning furnace. Right? And he loves him and he adores his father. And now we understand a deeper story about Terach leaving with Avram from Ur Kasdan. They left not because they were thrown out of town. Or maybe Avram was thrown out of town. But Terach left because he started to do tshuva himself. Terach realized his son was right. He realized, and you never know what it takes with some people. Maybe a brick wall to fall on your head to figure it out. But sooner or later, some people, if they're open-minded enough, will hear the truth. Now there are some people that are never that way. And a brick wall fall on their head, and they'll still say it's okay. Right? But, nevertheless, Terach picked up the message. Give Terach credit. Terach said there is a God. You're right. It's the truth. This is garbage, this idol stuff. I'm leaving with you. But they stopped, and it says there, if you take a look back in 52, it says they were on the way to Canaan, but they stopped at Choron. So we assume, why did they stop there? Because Terach said, it's too tiring for me, I'm too old. But that's not what Terach said. Terach said, my son Avram, I'm doing tshuva. I'm repenting. I'm changing my ways from idolatrous rejection of God to a healthy understanding of truth. But you're destined for greater things than me. You're going to change the world. I can't. I have a certain limitation to how much I can accomplish within the scope of truth. You can accomplish a whole lot more, my son. You go on, you move. And everyone's reluctant. But Father, I love you. Father, I want to be with you. So then steps Hashem and says, you have to leave. Even though you're 75 and Father's only 145 and well alive. And you don't want to leave him because you honor him. Listen to the message of honor father and mother. Listen to this message of Kibbud Avayim. But you must leave. And not does Hashem tell him this, but his father tells him this. And as his father tells him this, Hashem then confirms the message and says, Hashem Avram. Hashem says to Avram, Lech Lecha, go. Leave your father behind. I know you honor him. I know you respect him. I know you don't want to leave him, but you must leave him behind. Because why? Because he's already accomplished what he can. It's his life. He's done as much as he can. He's rejected the idolatry. He wants to live a good life and be a decent mensch, be a righteous Gentile, Hasidim Masa'olam. Fine. But you're destined for greater things. Your father said so. you can be the man that will change the scope of the universe. It's 2,000, the world is now. You will embark upon 2,000 years of Torah, change the world, impact. What Adam couldn't do, what Noah couldn't do. Because really, here's the cosmic change in the world. At the original state, and the original idea of God's creation, God thought that everybody would be God-fearing and Jewish, or we want to use the word Jewish, whatever, and just live the right life. But with the 2,000 years displaying total failure, Hashem saw the hope in Avram. And that's where the Havdalah, the distinction, the change happens, in which God says there will no longer be everyone in the same level of recognition of me. Now a whole new cosmic change will change in the world, and this will be specifically for your seed, Avram, for the Jewish people. Now we're going to make a whole big distinction. If there's a difference between a zebra and a giraffe, there's a difference between a Jew and a non-Jew. And that's a fact. And you, Avram, will make that change and impact the world and bring the world up to the level that your father reached through your efforts. Therefore, you must go on. So Avram goes on, hang on. So Avram goes on, Teretz Yisrael, because of God's demand. But we said that was a test. Could you imagine how deep the test was? It was, look at the test again. Verse 1, page 54. Look at the beginning of the Parsha. Hashem said to Avram, go for yourself, Lech Lecha.
Go to yourself.
For yourself, to yourself, this is what your destiny is.
Yes.
And from your land, that was Ur Kasdim, where you were born, right? From your relatives, you must say goodbye to your father, and from your father's house, certainly for sure your father's house, to go to the land that I will show you. Now, the going to the land that he will show him means Eretz Yisrael. We all learned that from Canaan, Eretz Yisrael. However, we understand that to get to Eretz Yisrael doesn't mean that you live in there. I mean, you live in Eretz Yisrael. It doesn't mean that you're controlling Eretz Yisrael. It's a mitzvah to control it. It's a mitzvah to make it yours. That's a mitzvah. It's not just to live in the land. I mean, people lived in the land in the 1700s in great poverty and suffering, 1800s, in the early 1900s, persecution from Arabs, persecution from the British. But people loved the land, but they didn't control the land. In 1948, we took control of the land. It's a whole new war.
You remember?
I remember. I wasn't there 48. I was only
No,
1 year
you
old.
remember to talk about it.
Oh, I'm talking. That's right. I remember talking about it. What's the point? So the point is very simple. We talked about it. Again, I did it on the Shabbos. I didn't do it with you people. I did it on Shabbos. I asked people the following question. There are 2 points of view in Israel today as why we are entitled to the land. One point of view says, historical. We were there. It's our land. The other point of view says, we need this land because we were persecuted so badly during World War II. We suffered so badly, we need a place to protect ourselves. Those are the 2 schools of thought. How many people believe, in this classroom here, how many people believe in the first school of thought, that it's an historical right? How many people believe that it's because we need protection from the onslaught of horrible enemies and Nazis and whatever?
I mean, it's both. Both.
You can only choose one. Sorry. You don't get to do that.
And the first one though.
And the answer is
None of them.
none of
You
them.
already taught us.
None. I told you this.
Like about 2 months ago, you said it's because Hashem gave it to us.
Oh,
Before Hag.
so that's not a historic what?
Before Hag.
Right, but that's not a historical claim. Because historically, who lived there first?
The Canaan.
The Canaan.
So it means, therefore, that the right to go in is a right that not only is from Hashem, but it's a command from Hashem to displace the others.
Yes.
In other words, you're required to remove them. or at least remove them from control. If persons want to live in Israel today who are not Jewish, they are entitled to do so, according to Jewish law, but not to have a voice in government at all. Not one single solitary Arab belongs in that Knesset. You understand that? So let's understand, therefore, that this is the right of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. It's because Hashem said so, because Hashem created the earth.
But wouldn't that be historical?
No, because historically, the Canaanites were there first.
You mean in history, in terms of who occupied the land?
Who
But
occupied?
we're looking from a Torah perspective, you're saying
Nevertheless, the Torah perspective is saying displaces. It does displace them. And that's the whole idea of what I want to say about the Palestinians. In any event, as Avram continues to go, in verse 4, who goes with him?
Lot.
Lot. Now let me talk about Lot. It's late, but I gotta give you the Lot story. I gotta give you the Lot story. I can give it to you next week. Let's do that.
Did Abram adopt Lot?
Well, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's his son.
yeah, that's his nephew.
Son,
Yeah, yeah. Let's start with. Let's give half the story, half the Lot story tonight. Next, at the end of the Lot story tomorrow. Lot is the son of Haran. Tell me about Haran. What is Haran? Haran died.
Yeah.
What about Haran? Tell me how he died. We talked about it.
He
What?
jumped into the furnace
Why?
testing guy.
Because it wasn't for Shem Shamayim.
But
Because he
What was his deep down agenda?
He
It
wanted
was-
to,
I'm
to
going
get-
to-
he wanted to show
to
that
get
he's
like
special
Abraham.
also.
I'm going to
I
the reading
didn't
side.
hear anything.
He was an
Tunis,
opportunist.
yeah, to
He's looking for where can I make the next buck.
Right.
Okay. To understand this, okay, therefore, turn to page 58, verse 8, verse 5, sorry, 58, 5. Now Lot, who went with Avram, had flocks, cattle, and tents as well. Now, how do you get him? I imagine that Avram probably shared it with him. Okay, but you can have this, my beloved nephew. Okay, and the land could not support them dwelling together, for their possessions were abundant and they were unable to dwell together. To say that they can't dwell together is unacceptable from Avram's perspective. Avram is a man who gives, who shares, who has hospitality, brings in strangers. You don't think he's going to give to his nephew, dear, what do you want? You want this, you got it. 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 Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right?
yes.
In this
And-
case, it wasn't.
So it wasn't good enough because Lot wasn't satisfied. So let's get the perspective again of people who are deeply, deeply
Egoistic.
lustful and needy and greedy, and I gotta have, and I need more space. So there's this problem, and there was quarreling, and the quarreling begins with the herdsman of Avram and the herdsman of Lot. Who starts the fight?
Lot.
Lot. Take a look at it. Who starts the fight? Who starts the fight? Avram. Avram starts. That's what it says.
He confronts him.
Yeah, Avram starts the fight.
Okay, but it didn't start the fight.
It says there, and the quarreling between the herdsman of Avram listed first, and the herdsman of Lot listed second.
Oh.
Okay? Vayi Riv ben Ro'eh Mikna Avram, who started it, ben Ro'eh Mikna Lot. So why did Avram start this fight? That's totally out of his nature. Avram said to him, listen, listen, we haven't been able to manage our affairs, side by side, and I'm trying to be as kind and as giving to you as possible. So I found out that you are going elsewhere in the fields that didn't belong to us.
Yes, he is.
You were stealing,
Stealing.
and I can't tolerate that. I love you. You're welcome to my house anytime. You become a thief, I kick you out, even if you're my flesh and blood. Do we understand that? You'll kick your own flesh and blood out. Guy comes to me years ago, a student, and he was a recovering drug addict. Maybe Rabbi Buck can help, this and that. He brings it to me. I start working with him, learning with him, teaching with him. He becomes religious, and this and that. He's one of doing great stuff. Maybe 8 months. and then there's a relapse. Now, that means, and of course that comes back, that begs another question. How do you avoid relapse? Because the answer is, each and every day is a new day of challenge. Says the Navi writes, Ashrei Adam Mefached Tamid. Every day you should be scared, worried, and cautious, and nervous that you might screw up or mess up somehow or another. Be careful. Don't take anything for granted. You're 8 months into recovery and you mess up. And he goes home, and Mom sees him, and she's so happy to see him back. My darling son, so good, you improved, you did so well. And he slept over that night and stole every dime in his mother's purse. So the issue here, of course, is not the issue of the addict. It's unfortunate, it's sad, and and our counsel to him has to be on your toes every day. You got a problem. You're an alcoholic. You got a problem every single day of the rest of your life. But the issue, really, the main lesson here is to learn that as a parent, you cannot tolerate such a child, and as an uncle, you can't tolerate such a nephew. I am committed to a world of giving, teaching, loving, sharing, and you are taking, stealing. You can't stay here. So make your choice. You can if you stop stealing. So it's whose choice?
Lot's.
Avram is not kicking him out, mamish. He's not actually kicking him out. He's saying, I have no, I can't stand what you're doing. Change, everything's swell. You have a question?
So what do you do with this?
Well, let's take a look.
Oh, okay.
The Torah has all the answers.
Yes, you're right.
Okay, so it says over there that Avram says to Lot in verse 8, let not there be a strife between us, and we're kinsmen, we're brothers. I mean, you're my brother's son. Is not all the land before you? Separate. If you go left, I go right. If you go right, I go left. What's he saying? What's he saying basically is, well, isn't it pretty obvious? If you go left, I go right. If we're separating.
Yeah. So
No, he's saying the exact opposite.
You know what?
He's saying, if you go left, let me tell you where I'll be. I'll be to the right. Meaning, I want you to know you can count on me. If ever
Yes.
you need me, I'm available. But I must separate. That's the point of his message. I'm telling you where I am, where it's obvious and self-evident, in order to explain to you that this is not a final decision. You want to do tshuva, you want to repent, you want to stop stealing, come on back home, no problem. So Lot's got it, it's all Lot's in Lot's hands now. Turn the page, page 60. And Lot picks up his eyes. The eyes of greed and lust and need and desire. And he sees this entire plain of the Jordan, and it's well watered everywhere. And he sees the beauty of the fields, and he sees the bright lights of Las Vegas, and he sees the great skyscrapers of New York. And he says, I'm not sticking around over here without Roman yeshiva. I'm getting out of here. Look at these big places I can go to. Aram, it's been nice. See you around. And so he leaves.
Pitches his tent.
And he pitches his tent
Towards Sodom.
towards a wicked place called Sodom. In other words, listen, Avram, let's put it simple. I know this is a beautiful place to be. It's a great Jewish community. It's you're the Rabbi. We're teaching, we're learning in the tent. It's magnificent. It's a great yeshiva. But you're not going to make a living. I just don't make a living. You know, that's the way it is. So over there, I can make a bit of living. But over there, there's no Judaism. Over there, you're leaving the Jewish community. In fact, you're going to Stone. You're going to Vegas. Now, there are Jewish communities in Vegas. Let me be fair. Of course, they don't live anywhere near the Strip. But point is that you're going to a bad place. It is forbidden for a person to willfully make that kind of choice. You know places filled with depravity, and you want to live in West Hollywood? Right in mind. Hollywood Boulevard, Sunset Boulevard, Melrose. I mean, I drive down Melrose from high school. I'm lucky I didn't get into an accident. I'm lucky I didn't get into an accident. At the end of the day, look what it says in verse 13. Read it, somebody. Go ahead.
Now the people of Sodom were wicked and sinful toward Hashem exceedingly.
Everybody knows that. Lot, what are you doing? I know it, you know it, everybody knows it. What are you doing? But the bright lights, the opportunity. I can make a lot of money. I can become wealthy. Aha! And we're going to see where his wealth led to next week when Sodom gets destroyed. That's not for now. In the meantime, what we need to know is that this was the fourth test of Avram. The fourth test was Avram was that they had to separate from his nephew, which broke his heart. Because why? Because he believed that since he had no children, that when God promised him he was going to have his kid, he figured it was going to be Lot. Because Sarah is physically incapable of children. She's barren.
Yes.
Okay, so this breaks his heart. But he's got to do it. He's got to stand up and do what's right. Passes the test. Test number 4. But what's interesting is that the 5th test is the test of the next chapter, chapter 14. A world war erupts. A war of 4 kings versus 5 kings. It happened in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elazar, and Tobal, and so on, all this king of Kedar, and all these guys, right? 4 kings versus 5 kings. What's that called in modern language? World war. That's a world war. What's it got to do with Avram? So now's not the time to figure it out, but let's just say Lot gets captured. Lot gets captured, okay, and Avraham mounts an army of 318 guerrilla terrorists, right, who will strike from behind in the middle of the night and win this war simply to save Lot. And he says so because if you take a look at verse 12 on page 62, it says, right? Verse 13. Here comes the refugee, the fugitive, and he tells Avram that right, the Ivri dwells, who's dwelling in the place of the Amorite, the brother of Eshcol, the brother of Aner, so on and so on. These being Avram's allies. When Avram heard that his kinsman was taken captive, kinsman means a brother. A fellow Jew is a brother, sister. A fellow Jew is captured, you can't sleep at night. For all those years that Jonathan Pollan languished in prison, it was a stain on the American Jewish community. We didn't do enough to get this man's release. Now you'll say this, that, he committed this crime, that crime. We all know, of course, that the crime did not fit, that the punishment didn't fit the crime. We all know that he was kept there longer than any other spy in U.S. history. He was kept there spying for Israel when at the same year that he was arrested in '84, a spy for Russia was arrested for the same crime and was released in 4 years. If that isn't anti-Semitism and anti-Jewishness, there is no other great example of that. Jew hatred, clear in the United States of America, in the upper levels of government, kept followed in. And what do we do about it? What do we do about it? That's the whole idea of realizing your brother. Every Jew's a brother. Now, this is the whole idea again of understanding what is the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew? The non-Jew is my friend. The Jew is my family. We understand that. And that's why conversion is such a massive undertaking, because it takes you from one family to another. And then the separation, as we talked about, Havdalah. Last point of the night is the third test. And the first test was what? The burning furnace. Second test was traveling, right? The third test, Lot was the fourth.
Separation from the father.
Oh no, that was all part of Lech Lecha. That was all part of the travel. The separation from the father is part of that. There's a separating from, because it says so. Lech Lecha, No, those 4.
To
So who's
yourself.
3? Take a look. Here's 3 right here. Page 56, verse 10. All right? Avram is in this new land. And by the way, I gotta add 2 more things to this here. Look what Avram does look what Avram does in verse 8. On 56. What's he do? Okay, he's moving his tent around, right? He's traveling, he's a traveling man. And mind you, this is the traveling Jew, right? And
He built an altar.
he builds an altar and he invokes Hashem by name. What does that mean? He's spreading the message to the world. That's what Noah didn't do. That's why he was the game changer. That's why he made a difference. He's telling the world about Hashem. You see how Roman is doing? To prove that point, let's go back and this is what I really wanted to say, is take a look at page 54, verse 5, the beginning of the Parsha. Okay? Hashem tells Avram, leave your land and go to Eretz Yisrael. I'll make you a great nation, a great name, and a great blessing. Right? And you will, by the way, take a look at verse 2 for a second. I'll make you, I beg your pardon. I can't help it. I can't help it. I will make you a great nation. We said that?
Right.
That means Avram's having no children. How am I going to travel and have children? Hashem says, don't worry about it. I guarantee you're going to have a great nation. A mighty, large people come out of you. Okay? Number 2, he says, I'll bless you. We said that was money. Don't worry about the wealth. You're worried about diminished returns. Don't worry about it. Number 3, I'll make your name great. You're worried about the fact. What does he want his name great for? Because to spread the message. He doesn't want his name great.
Not for himself.
That's right. He wants this, and he wants this. And I said, don't worry. I will guarantee that you'll make the impact you're thinking of because you do it for me.
Yes.
Then he says here, and you shall be a blessing. What's that last part? You shall be a blessing. So that teaches us that we have to make a bracha every day, for men 3 times a day, for women once a day, about our fathers, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu Elokei Avotenu, Elokei Avraham, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. From that pasuk. That pasuk tells us that what? That I'll make you a great nation. That is the God of Avram. I will bless you. That's the God of Isaac, Yitzchak. And I'll make your name great. That's the God of Yaakov. We say those 3 things on the basis of this passage. That's the reason why we say it every day. And the name of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov shall be a blessing. That's the bracha. Now watch what it says. Now, go down to verse 5. Avram goes, as Hashem told him. Lot goes with him. Avram 75, we talked about that. Avram takes his wife Sarai and Lot, his brother's son, and all their wealth. And they were wealthy, as Kim pointed out. And the souls they made in Haran. Who them guys?
Those Gentiles.
Those are all the people that Avram Avinu converted.
Converted.
He had amassed an army of people whom he had converted to the true faith, to the truth of Hashem. He had made an impact beyond imagination in Haran. That's where he was reluctant to go. Besides the fact that he had to leave his father. And Hashem said, you don't know what your future is. You don't know what destiny is. You haven't got an inkling. You think you made a big impact here? Oh, they're going to make an impact on the entire world, the entire globe. But not here, in Eretz Yisrael. For the Middle East. For the Middle East, that's where you will make your impact. And that's why Hashem is telling him. Hashem is telling him, you must go. In so doing, he brings with him all these people. Is there any question what Avraham Avinu is doing and what his goal is and how he is changing the world and how he's therefore avoiding destruction for the world? This in mind now comes to test number 3. Avraham gets to the land and on page 56, verse 7, he's promised. What's he promised? He's promised that you will have this wonderful land to your children. Let me make the connection quick.
It has to be.
What is the connection between your land and your children?
They would inherit their land.
What's the connection? between land and children. A land is worthless without children. Children are worthless without a land. If you make one promise, you make another. The promise of Israel is the promise of the great nation of Israel. The promise of the land of Israel is the great nation. The promise of the nation is the land. Do we see the connection between Israel and its land?
Yes.
The nation must have a land. The land must have its children, its people, its nation. That is the dual promise that Hashem makes to Avraham Avinu, that you'll become a great nation, but not in Haran. You'll become a great nation in Israel. That's your future. That's your destiny. And finally, we say, verse 10. Of course, we all said that he kept on. He kept on in verse 8. He kept on invoking Hashem's name, and of course, verse 9. Abram journeys here and there, right? Journeying steadily, on and on, to spread the message. Verse 10. All of a sudden, there's a famine in the land. What does that tell you?
Plan. There is a
It's
reason for the plan.
I'm Avram.
practice.
Allow me to role play. Allow me. I'm Avram. And I'm traveling. And I'm doing whatever you say, God. And you tell me this, don't worry about it, money, children, fame, everything's fine. And I'm traveling to the land you told me. You told me Chorah's not my destiny. Swell. I come to the land that
There's a family.
excuse me? And God says to Avram, go to the land that I'll show you. See, he's traveling. Stop here. Stop where? Here? Here? It's a famine here. There's no food. There's no... So Avram's got a big test. And he answers the test by doing a very smart move. He says, obviously I can't live here. But there's a deeper message to Hashem. What he's trying to say. The one thing he's telling me for sure is don't go back to Haran. Therefore, I will go somewhere else as an alternative. In other words, I'm in Eretz Yisrael and finances are very poor. And I can't get a good job and I haven't got food and the problem is difficult and the economy is tough. And you know what? Hashem says, okay, go to America. You can find a job. But understand, your travel to America or wherever is, say it again.
Temporary.
Oh, Kim gets the prize tonight. Kim and Alexis. It's temporary, folks. So now, you're right. So now, Baruch Hashem, we had all these years, Baruch Hashem, a beautiful shul over there, we were learning. We had to make a little move. Over here, not too far, it's only 2.5 miles, 3 miles, maybe 4 miles to Riverside. It's a wonderful thing. We're big here. Everyone's moved in here real smooth line. Even Jess is okay with the thing over there. Well, everything's great. Right? Everything's great. What's the bottom line? The bottom line is we're traveling. We're out from Avinu, you know? And
We're blessed and
we have to move eastward. We were on Whitset. Now we're on Colfax. We're moving east,
the place of
east, not west, east, to the land of Israel. You understand? Okay. Anyway, the end of the story here is that he passes the test, but I gotta tell you, I made a mistake in the calculation. Test number 1 was the burning furnace. Test number 2 is the trip. Test number 3 is the famine. And test number 4 is not low, it's 5. Well, you know what test number 4 is? Let's take a look.
All right.
Verse 11. He comes to Mitzrayim. Avram decides to go to Mitzrayim. Do you see where it says Avram descended to Egypt? What does descend mean? Whenever you read Eretz Yisrael, you're going down. It's called in Hebrew as vis-a-vis.
Aliyah.
Okay, we'll know the difference. Okay, now, all of a sudden he tells his wife, I know you're beautiful. You're married all these years, you first found out she's beautiful.
Everybody was ugly in this time, so.
That's a good shot. That's an Itai shot. That's Itai's. When Itai writes his book, yes.
It's actually Manuel, but okay.
Okay, we call them Manuel's. Basically, rule Chazal learned from this, by the way, is that his recognition of her as a beautiful woman is a recognition of her physically, which means that his relationship with her was far beyond physical. That's the whole idea. That this relationship here is much deeper than that. I understand now that we're in a situation where danger could occur because of your beauty. And I understand this physical reality, but that's not our reality. Our reality is much more deeper than that. Okay? When he says this, he says, you know, they're going to look at you and they're going to say, whoa, there's his wife. Follow me in verse 12. And what do we do with a guy whose husband with a pretty wife?
He will kill him.
Kill him, take her. Right? Now, why don't they just take her? It's against their morals. You don't take a married woman. It's not nice. Kill the guy first, then take her. Now, is that perverted or what? I mean, adultery's unacceptable, but murder, that's okay. You see the craziness of people?
Yeah.
Anyway, so he tells her, tell him you're my sister. Tell him we're brother and sister. In this way, you'll save my life. So he's trying to save himself? Not at all. What's he trying to say? If I'm a husband,
I believe.
I'm dead, and I can protect you. But if you tell him I'm your brother, right, and that you're not my wife, therefore any of you guys have a chance with her, but there's only one way to get that chance. You got to talk to me, and I might choose you, or choose you, or choose you, or choose you. So therefore, they'll keep me alive. You see, but this is the test. This is the test. And by the way, all of these tests are for one. And we're going to find. We covered 5 or 6 tonight. We're going to do the next week, and the end of Lod as well next week. But here's the key. The key is that every test is challenging Avram on one single issue.
Trust in Hashem.
The single issue is, I want something from you. I want children. I want someone to carry on beyond me to keep this message alive. I need children. So God says, go into the burning furnace. And Avram says, burning furnace? You can't have children from dead. Hashem says, trust me. Okay, go to the burning furnace, out it comes. Now Hashem says, travel. Travel? You can't have children when you have traveling. Hashem says, trust me. Trust. Okay. Now he comes to the land, and the land has a famine. So he looks up at Hashem and says, how can you have children when there's a famine? You can't feed them, right? Hashem says, trust me.
Yes.
So he goes to Mitzrayim. They take away his wife. How can you have children without a wife?
Trust me. Yeah.
Trust me.
Trust me.
Trust me. I'll show you how you can do it. It's not Hashem. That's not Hashem. And at the end of the day, of course, now we come back to which test 4. Now he comes to test 5, which is the separation from Lot, and he's got to get rid of Lot, and he knows he's got to, and he looks up at Hashem and says, I don't see what happened here. I mean, Lot was going to be my child, and that's the whole ballgame is about children, and you took that one away. Hashem says, trust me. Then there's a war in which Lot is captured. Now, maybe Lot could become the next, maybe Lot will do tshuva. So therefore, you go fight to save Lot, and Lot doesn't do any tshuva at all. And still, is the challenge, where's the children? So that's 6 tests that I've already passes. Each one of them trying to find a play in which he has children. And every single test goes against the normative of how to have kids. Goes against the normal process of having children. To tell you, trust me, and you will have. At the end of the day, at the end of the Parsha, because it tells him another test, and he says, how old are you? Oh, I'm 99, 99. I mean, you want to have children?
Trust me.
Here's what you got to do. I want you to circumcise yourself. Say that again. No doctor, no moil, no what do they call it?
No anesthesia.
And
Basically,
you're saying to me basically that without circumcision it ain't gonna work. And with circumcision, it's gonna work.
you want to have kids? Cut it. That's basically the
That's basically the idea. I would say cut it. Some would say trim it.
Trim it. That's better.
I love it. That's way more gentle.
That's right. Especially for the guy, especially for the kid. Anyway, so the end of the day, of course, is that the Parsha ends with the second mitzvah of the Torah. The first is to Adam have children. The second is have the circumcision. Which really, if you think about it, goes hand in hand. In other words, what Hashem is telling Avraham Avinu is, this mitzvah is a mitzvah that will do what? It will give you the sense of children that are different than the rest of the world's children. That's the whole idea. And that's the covenant. And that's you and me and nobody else. And once again, what we say here is that, as since they're trying to say, we're not downplaying the world, we're just upgrading who the Jews are. And that's an important lesson to understand in terms of identity, of identification. Who am I? Who am I? So somebody who doesn't understand this, or perhaps is very super liberal and can't figure it out. See, he comes to the synagogue, and comes to shul, and during the synagogue services on Shabbat morning, they read the Torah, and of course they honor 7 different guys. With Aliyah to get all called up to the Torah. So the guy goes, he's honored, Yamod, so-and-so, whoever your name is, and you get up to the Torah, and you're really excited, you open up the Torah, and you make the bracha, and you say, Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, bless Hashem, King of the world, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, that you chose us from all nations. V'nasan lana Torah, and you give us the Torah. So, now this fellow, who got this Aliyah, really doesn't understand what he said. I mean, I thought it's in Hebrew. Who understands Hebrew? Israelis, maybe. I'm not even sure they do. But in any event, he gets up there, he says this bracha, he comes out, and everyone says, it's a wonderful thing, and he begins to talk about, I think everybody's equal. Well, sir, you just said, not that way. So you got to really be on top of your game and really understand what the message is here. The message is, it's not putting people down. It's upgrading the uniqueness of the Jewish people. Based upon the selection of Avraham Avinu. Not only did Avraham choose Hashem, Hashem chose Avraham. Atah Hashem Lakim Hashem B'chata B'Avraham, L'tzeit Mi'ot Chasdim, Zat L'shma Avraham, U'matzat L'bavona Manafanecha. That we say every morning?
Right.
You are Hashem who chose Avram, made his name Avraham, which we do, by the way, at the end of the parsha, right? And that's an interesting thing. We give him his name at the end of the parsha, a new name, right?
Yes.
And his bris. That's why we do, and we give babies names at the bris. Avram got a new name at the bris. He got Avraham. So the idea is that Avraham took over the task that Noach and Adam failed. And in this task the task is not to believe in Hashem. Even the non-Jewish world has to do that.
No, to spread.
To spread it.
To spread his name.
That the non-Jewish world does not have an obligation, have no connection with it. Our job is to live by it. Our job is to live for it. Our job is to spread the name, to spread the message. That the non-Jewish world does not have that obligation or that ability. That is a unique gift that Hashem has chosen to Avram, and only Avram's descendants. But wait a second, says Avram, where are my descendants? There's not Hashem. God will help. And trust me, through each and every one of the tests. You want a real quick preview of something? This will kill you. This will absolutely.
What do you?
Who knows what the 10th test was?
To sacrifice.
You sacrifice Akida.
To sacrifice.
Go on to that.
Okay.
So finally gets the child. I'm jumping into next week, but I'm just giving you a little preview. Finally gets the child, right?
Yes.
And he circumcises the child, and everything's swell. Okay, there's a little problem with Yishmael, kick Yishmael out, and he was a little unhappy with that, but all right. Right there, they're gonna test there because he considered the smaller child too. And God says to him, you know that child that you were praying for all these years? And you know that child that you love so much and that you cherish? And you know that child that I promised you and I gave to you? Give him back. But it's all about spreading the name, and he's the only one that passed that test. You have no idea the absolute inner courage of a man like Avraham Avinu
Yes.
to be able to perceive the truth and realize Hashem will help.
Yeah,
Even
God
in the
will.
most disastrous circumstances that are restricting you from doing what you want to, from doing with God's service.
God
And
will.
you'll find that you gotta trust.
Yeah.
And that's really the idea of Avraham Avinu and the 10 tests. So everyone, thank you for coming. Have a wonderful Shabbos.